Welcome to our next podcast, and today we're just going to shoot the about knives.
Yeah, knives from our collection. A couple of models that sort of were pivotal, had a bit of a significance to why we got into knives or first knives. So let's sort of kick it off with Adrian.
The first knife I've brought to the table today is the Freeman F1. It was the knife that got me into like small compact fixed blades. Now, it was around a time when you couldn't get folders in Australia. I'd like to call that the dark ages of knives here in Australia.
Definitely.
It got me onto looking at not folding knives, but small fixed blades, just to replace that void that folding knives have. I got the Freeman F1, just being that it was, dubbed as a really hard use Swedish military style knife. Have not been able to put this thing down since I've got it. As far as just outdoor work. I do have quite a few blades in my collection that are this size. It's just a nice utility size. It's not too big. I don't want to chop things. I just want to be able to slice and cut. I had a Buck River Bravo about the same time. They're very similar. Like I did see some videos were sort of versing the two. I just felt that I was always coming back to this knife. It's just great in the hand. And to me, it's kind of like a piece of IKEA furniture. It's very just basic, to the point, no frills, does what it needs to do. It features the laminated VG10 steel, so just exceptional Japanese quality stainless cutlery steel. So very strong blade, a hard plastic overmolded handle, a great outdoor knife. Like I said, this is the knife I grab when I go outdoors.
As you can see, folks, looking at it, this blade has had some use.
Yeah.
It's not a shelf queen. It's definitely got some scratching on the blade from being used.
Yeah, having a lot of fun with using this knife, yeah.
And what's nice, that is touted as, that is the issue to Swedish pilots as their down pilot survival knife. Yes. So for those guys to have that sort of confidence in the blade, definitely, to issue it to their military personnel, this is a great quality fixed blade. All right, the knife I brought to the table, this was a fixed blade that was my first proper fixed blade that I wanted to get for sort of bushcraft survival type work. This is Cold Steel's Recon Scout. Why I settled on this, I was looking at the SRK, but I just wanted something a little bit longer in the blade length. So if I was doing some batoning, something that'd be a bit more hard use. And this knife, Jesus, it's had a workout. I've batoned logs as big as this blade where I've had that much tip hanging out, and this thing has not faltered. I've split logs through and hit concrete at the bottom, and it still hasn't even chipped this blade. This is a really good piece of steel. It's I believe one of the older models, so it is an SK5 carbon tool steel. As you can see, this thing has had some use. All the paint sort of starting to wear off it from chopping into things and batoning logs. Why I settled on this knife was the thickness of that spine. This thing, like, it's what, nearly 1/4 inch, you reckon?
I'd say thereabouts.
Yeah, it looks like it's like 1/4 inch thick steel, yet they've done a nice full flat grind. So it's still not too thick on that blade's edge, so you're going to get a great slicing if you're doing some food prep or some more general purpose camping chores. Nice rubbery craton handle, and it is a full tang design, but it's a hidden tang, so it's not exposed like a traditional full tang knife. This knife was a bit of a game changer for me, and it was quite a while before I did buy another fixed blade of this sort of genre, let's call it, because I was so happy with the performance out of this knife. Comes with a great Securex sheath, which Cold Steel's renowned for doing good quality sheaths. Plenty of cutouts wrapping around it for different attachment methods. And surprisingly for a tool steel, I found this knife to be very rust resistant, pretty much. Like, I've never wiped this knife down and sort of oiled it, yet it still looks in pretty good condition.
Well, I might talk about a folding knife now. I've got the Lion Steel SR1A. I feel this pocket knife and Lion Steel, just in that time, really did start setting the standards for folding knives, the knife industry, designs. What I like about this SR1A, it's a full integral, so the handle is machined from one piece of material. Now, traditionally, before Lion Steel made this knife, there was only integrals really made out of titanium, and it was a very sort of select, sort of niche process, being that it was very expensive to get the machines to be able to cut 4-axis and all the rest of it.
Usually you'd only see custom knife makers ripping out this sort of a thing, so yeah, to see it in a production knife.
Yeah, like around that time, Peter Resenti, I think, was doing integrals. So it was a very new concept to the folding knife world. When this knife did debut at an Atlanta blade show, It did win, I think it was like best knife design or best folder, just being that like no one had ever seen a knife like this beforehand. Full integral, aluminium handles, came with the rotor block as well. Don't quote me, but I think this might have been, if not the first, one of the earlier line steel models to get that rotor block, which is a very popular locking mechanism on all their frame lock folders these days. Another great feature that sort of set them apart, the steel lock bar insert. They did that on the aluminium handle, just being that Ali is a little bit softer, so it was more or less out of necessity. But I think it also opened the way, just being that a lot of people were making these integrals and butting the knife blade up against the raw titanium, did open the gate for, the hardened steel lock inserts. As far as the knife, just really, really good attention to detail. Something you'd expect from line steel, just being that European influence, more so Italian influence, is just sexy. So as far as their designs, their quality, fit and finish, everything's just smooth as glass and really visually appealing. I have noticed a little bit of rust here and there over time, but that's just me being a bit salty and not really paying attention to blades after I've used them. Maybe, cut a chip packet or something and got a little bit of salt and vinegar still on it. But other than that, just a really good knife. Yeah, a beautiful knife that definitely turned the folding knife game on its head and made way for a lot of exciting new concepts. Yeah. Nice
feature of that blade I've just noticed is it's got the glass breaker incorporated into the sort of under the pocket clip on the end of the knife.
Yeah.
Which is a really great feature, and it's quite a deep carry pocket clip too, you would say. So this blade we're going to have a look at is a folding knife that I scored at a trade show from another seller in the industry. It's a brand we don't have access to, and I'd never actually heard of this brand before. Freeman Outdoor Gear. Now, Freeman Outdoor Gear is Jeff Freeman, who was the lead designer at Gerber for many, many years. But then he decided to leave Gerber and go out on his own and create his own range of knives. This folding knife is a button lock folder, so it's a little bit different on its opening and closing mechanism. You can actually depress the button and a bit of a wrist flick, and you can open that knife up and you press the button and you can close that blade. It's also got the flipper tab, which is what I normally would open via, and just with a flip. This knife's very smooth. It's running on stainless steel ball bearings, and all these parts are made in the USA. So from the screws, the handles, the blade is machined out of S35 VN steel, so it's a great cutlery steel, gives great edge retention and corrosion resistance, and this knife is just ridiculously smooth. This is the smoothest knife I own in my collection. I must admit, this knife hasn't seen much use. It gets used occasionally, but this is one that I sort of like for my collection in nice condition. So I just like to have this on my desk. It's a nice blade to look at and to play with. It's got a nice clip. It's not a deep carry clip, sort of a wire style sort of cutout clip. It's got the hard anodized aluminium handles, and it's got some G10 inserts on the front for some additional grip. Yeah, this is a beautiful knife.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed having a little bit of a sample of some of our knives in our collection. If you missed the last podcast, don't forget to check it out. Stay tuned for more.